Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast. I'm Albie. I'm here with Christopher, and we have a very special guest I'm excited about. He played Josh Nally in the episode Off the Cuff. He's Josh Dean. How you doing, Josh?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here.
I got to ask, was your character named Josh before this script got you, or did they just want to call you the same name because they like your name was so cool?
They did. It was actually written. It was a part written for me by the writer of this episode, Alex Berger. I had done a lot of a show that he was previously writing on called Blind Spot, and I guess that he liked my work enough and working with me enough that he had me in mind when he was first writing this, and so that's why the character. I think it was maybe the name itself was a working title, but they just stuck with it.
It makes it easier when somebody says Josh. You don't have to think about it before you answer.
Yeah, I can respond to all the time, but it was very confusing when the cameraman, because occasionally they'll call you by your character name to say, "Can you move over on your left" or whatever, and they would always say Josh, or I'm sorry, it's Josh. Oh, okay, well, fine. So Josh, yeah.
That's amazing. There's a lot of blind spot actors on this show. Is that because Martin? Probably.
That's exactly right. They call it the Garrowverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You would have had, well, on this episode alone, there's two, right? But then, I mean, in the past, there's been a bunch of different ones. Aaron Abrams, Joe Dinical, PJ Byrne, all kinds of folks who have shown up on both. So.
Yeah, like a lot. And it's like I just expect it now when I go through the cast list and the IMDb. It's like, yep, blind spot.
Yeah. Blind spot. That's right. It could be a drinking game.
I like it. Okay, I want to get to Quantum Leap, but I want to start off finding out about you and how you got in the business and stuff like that. You're an actor, you're a writer, you're a voice director. How did you get into the entertainment industry? How did you get the bug?
I was I'm Canadian. I was in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, just before high school, and I saw some people doing improv on the street, busking, doing improv. And I had previously we lived on. I grew up on a horse farm, like a ranch out in the middle of nowhere, and we had a big, what they call a gray market satellite dish, the huge ones that like slowly turn. And so we could get occasionally, if you were lucky and found the right satellite, you could watch American TV. And it was when Whose Line Is It Anyway? The British one was being aired a lot on Comedy Central when it first early days. And I thought that was the most amazing thing. And when I saw these guys busking, I realized, oh, like anybody can do that. So I started improvising, joined up with the local professional team. I wound up touring all over the world with it, and then got into scripted theater, and then got scouted by someone from Fox way back when, over 20 years ago. And she said, you should move to Los Angeles. And so I did. And then she gave me a TV show shortly after that. And then it was pretty easy after that.
Yeah, she just gave you a TV show.
I mean, all of the actor people that I know, I don't understand why they say it's so hard. It was cinchy. I had my own show a couple of weeks after I got off the bus. But I had a show in an improvised sitcom on Fox, and then it was just kind of, bouncing here and there since then. And so that's the very short version of the last 30 years.
Very cool. Yeah. When I saw you on Off the Cuff in this episode, I was like, I know him from something. Mm-hmm. It was without the goatee, but I knew your eyes from something. So I was interested to find out. When I went back, I noticed you were in, Con Man.
Yes, indeed. I wrote that show.
6 episodes. I was excited to find out. How do you get writing with Alan Tudyk for those?
Well, Nathan Fillion is one of my dearest friends, and he is also from Edmonton. And so early when I was first moved here to LA, I'm based in LA now. I was hanging out with Nathan a lot, and that was after Firefly, but sort of just before Serenity. And so and that cast is all very tight still. But so we were always hanging out together. And just over the course of a couple of years, I made Alan laugh enough just at gatherings that he started coming to me when there was, when he had something he wanted some writing done on, which you said writer. I have written stuff, but I wouldn't say that it is my profession. So he when they were doing Con Man, he asked me to come on and help out. And so the second season, I wound up kind of being the writing it along with Alan and a few other two other fellas, and with occasional help from others. And yes, that's how that wound up happening.
Very cool. It was a good show. I'm in the credits, way buried in the stuff. I'm not going to say I'm a big Firefly fan, a big brown coat, but my daughter's name's Serenity. So,
wow, okay, that's just a coincidence.
No, she's named after a spaceship. She hopes to meet your friend one day. So, and
incredible.
tell her name. So, yeah,
that's a lot. That's a lot easier to do now that we know each other.
yeah, that's true. Next time I'm in LA, we'll hang out. That'd be cool.
Please.
So, Josh, that's fascinating to me. Can you talk a little bit about Con Man? Because as someone who writes occasionally, like you said, I have to imagine that production might have been a little bit different because it was much more of an independent project. So were you involved more than you think you might have been otherwise had it been more of a straight-laced network show?
I mean, certainly there would have been other a lot more people involved, I think, and more senior writers ahead of me. But and we had a lot of freedom because it was just the four of us in an apartment downtown, for 2-3 months, just writing, trying to bang this thing out and figure it out. So I 100% would not have had the opportunity otherwise. But it's also, I think, the way that Alan likes to work is by he wants to be able to have some creative control as much as he can have, because he's such a creative beast, and so I don't know that he would do it under any other circumstances or in any other way. I think that he prefers to keep it small and tight with people he trusts, rather than bringing on some ringer that he's never met and who doesn't get him. And it was really just a matter of trying to give some shape to things that he had already been thinking about for a long time. He really had been they'd been working on concepts like this for a long time before it actually came together. And so it was really kind of taking a lot of different things and throwing them at the wall, and then just seeing how funny we could make it.
That's my next question. Put you on the spot. Who's funnier, Alan or Nathan?
Very different funny. There's Nathan is funny wordplay. Alan is funny character. Like they Nathan is all funny charm, and Alan, I think, is more of like an energy ball. So I mean, that's an apples and oranges question, I think. But 100% it's Nathan.
Okay, we got that out of the way. All right,
just because
it's now been established on the Quantum Leap podcast.
I have a better chance of at least like surviving a fight with Alan, I think. So that's why I chose to go that way.
Who came up with the back to you bit? Back to you. Back to you. Back to you.
Oh, right. I don't remember. I do not remember. I think it was me, but I honestly don't remember. I don't remember much from that experience.
All right. Yeah, it was a little bit ago. I got a kick out of that because we do a lot of interviews, we host a lot of things, so we're always like trying to hand it off to each other. So that was funny.
Actually, I remember it was something that I had pulled out from a sketch that I had written a long time ago back in Edmonton. The idea of like, or I always find it funny when they say back to you and thanks so much, and just the idea of them getting into this kind of like one-upmanship of like thank you cards for thank you cards sort of a thing, and so I believe that may have been the origin of that. But when you're in a room like that for an extended period of time, jokes no longer belong to a person, right? They all get batted around and you don't remember who came up with it. All the good ones were mine, but anything that was inappropriate or didn't land. Probably those were some other people's. I want to share credit where I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a secret third answer to my question. The funny one is Josh.
Yeah,
He's the funny one.
Yeah,
exactly. I bet if you asked either of them, they wouldn't say that. No, probably they would. I think they would.
Writing, you wrote a movie I just watched tonight, Christmas Prince, the baby
Oh
one.
God, you really do your research. Yes. So I had done the first two as an actor, and I had done 4 or 5 movies from that same production company shooting up. It's a company that really, they've just got this brilliant business machine going out of just Northern Ontario. They're based in Barrie, Ontario, and they just have like this crack team of people, and they turn out like 10, 12 movies a year, and they've got like this crew that just like work together constantly. And and so I had gone up there a number of times and had gotten to know everybody up there, and said, my wife is a writer, and I've written things, and we'd be interested in writing one. And then nothing happened, and then we got a call out of the blue, like almost a year later, that was like, hey, you want to write the third one of these? You already know all the characters. And I was like, yeah, we'll do that. And so then we did. And then I went up there to shoot it during the pandemic, which wasn't a delight.
So was that your first feature film script?
That's right. Yeah, that would have been the first.
And it got produced. That like never happens.
No, it does. I mean, I'm a big believer in doing things while I'm getting paid, and so it was a great opportunity because I already had the job before I had to do it. I mean, we gave them samples and everything, but it was it was such a fast. There's obviously like some craft and nuance to it, but they are a formula, and there's a lot of different choose your own adventures that you can go through those, but through the formula, but there it is still, they're fairly formulaic. So it comes together. We were really given marching orders and essentially the overall story that they were hoping to tell, in very broad strokes. And so we really just had to plug things in and try to find some fun in it. Ours is certainly the goofiest of the series. But that's it was a really great time getting to write with my wife and go up there and getting to name a character Blevins, which still makes me laugh. I don't know. That was it. I'm very impressed that you watched. I mean, you may have been sitting on the fast forward button a little bit, but
no, not at all.
Very
I love those kind of movies. I hadn't seen that one.
Oh, well, in that case,
I hadn't seen that one, so I enjoyed it. I have to say, I won't spoil
the whole
it, but
series.
I will now. I'm going to go back, but I watched the one you wrote first. But I have to say the proposal scene got me. So good job on that.
All right, so
touched my heart.
So glad. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad I touched your heart.
Yeah, and
it was kind of gross feeling.
A lot of cholesterol in there right now. So, now you also are a voice director, right? Which is interesting. Right. I find that interesting. Can you explain that for video games?
I certainly can. Yes, for video games primarily. I also have directed on the animated series Arcane on Netflix, but I direct video games. I started. I used to do a lot of video game voiceover and some motion capture stuff, and a lot. I don't know how familiar you both are with games. It sounds, Albie, like you are a little bit familiar with games.
A little bit.
Yeah. I worked a lot with this company called BioWare, which is also Edmonton based, and had done a lot of voices for them. And after I moved down here, I was in between jobs, and I was kind of looking to scrape up some dough, and I heard they were going to release a couple of games. And so I reached out and said, you have any parts that I could play? And they said, actually, we need a director based in Los Angeles, and we think you'd be good at that. Do you want to try? And I was like, okay. And then 6 months later, I had directed like a AAA video game, and so I really enjoyed it. I'm a huge video game nerd, and I always have been, and so it was a really I find being able to kind of connect my knowledge of gaming and being on the other side of the glass or camera, it's a really good mix, I think. And so so side of my career really has, took off, and I've been able to work with all the biggest companies and all the games I ever wanted to play, and I've gotten to direct and be in some, and so it's kind of a dream. It's also I had twins a few years ago, and twin fellas that are 2 and a bit, and hopefully still sleeping right now in the house. But and so being able to work from home during that time, it was incredible. I was able to just be home most of the time, and walk, go every 10 minutes or every hour when you take your 10-minute break, go just walk in and cuddle them, and so that's been really wonderful. So it's been a consistent job, which having, as I explained, been in theater and then as being an actor, that's not a normal kind of thing. To be in demand for the thing instead of just begging for a job is it's a real heady mix.
You'd caught into something really astutely, Josh. Albie is into video games. I'm not. And I'm curious to know the process of directing a video game like that, because you had mentioned before, it's kind of like the choose your own adventure motif. And it seems to me with video games, there are so many different paths that a player can go down. There must be scripts that branch off into a bunch of different directions.
Yes.
Do you have to get like the actors to do different takes based on how the game is progressing? Or is it like, okay, we need her to say, stop right there, and she just does the one take, and then they just plug it in wherever the stop right there might go? Or
normally, I mean, all games work differently. Like all game companies record differently, and some games have branches that are purely narrative, and some games have ones that are also character based, where all the BioWare games, there were, I think, the first people to do like I want to say this like in a confrontational way, I want to say this in a heroic way, I want to say this in as a joker. And so they had to write every line in that game 3 times, and then so you would say, okay, we're going to go back through this, and then you get like every exchange is essentially its own script. So you go up to the shopkeeper, and then you have a script with that person, and then at the bottom is the other branches of that dialogue that you could record, and then below that is branches the other direction, and then you go back through and get the versions of each that you need. So that's how they work. But then I've directed on the last 2 Spider-Man games, and those games, they well, there isn't necessarily a real difference that you can choose emotionally, because it's Spider-Man. That's not necessarily up to you. They have to be aware of whether you're swinging or perched or fighting, because a line could fire at any time. And so you have to record some lines that aren't in a cutscene. You have to record all those different ways. So you would record the same line written the same way, but delivered with by punching or like with the tension of swinging and that feeling and that like slight projection. So yeah, it's a very complicated system. It's always one that's changing throughout the year and a half, 2 years that you're directing the game, because the systems are changing, or it turns out we can't actually do water, so that whole underwater world that isn't happening anymore. We're canceling all of that we've already recorded and doing this other stuff. And it's fun, because every day at work is you never know what the new challenge is going to be, and it's incredible.
It's very cool.
It just seems insane, like maddening at times. It probably is, but
it can be. I mean, certainly we've been in I've been in sessions, and I'll just say, like, I have no idea who this character is, and I don't know what you feel about them, which is poor directing, quite frankly. But it's because, but that'll be because the script just came in that day, and that character didn't exist before that day, and so so you have no context, so you kind of like, based on the way you're responding to them, I don't think you like them, but I have no idea why not. And then 6 months later, you'll get a re-record of that line, you pick up of that line, and it'll be like, I don't know why that character was being yelled at, but you shouldn't yell at them. And so you just re-record it the correct way. They catch it on the back end. But for the most part, we try to figure out or infer what's going on and apply that.
Very cool. Which Spider-Man games? Because I just bought one. Haven't started it yet.
Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2. Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
And
yes.
now, to be fair, though, those are both of those were directed by myself and another director who some games you're a secondary director, sometimes you're the primary, sometimes or some games they're split, and so I've split on that one. Most of the big games are, just because you've got people recording in the UK, or you've got just such a mountain of material, and so I can't say that I'm the sole director, but I am one of two.
Very cool. Serenity's excited to play that, but we're finishing Star Trek Resurgence first.
I've heard
and
that's
then we're
going to
start on our Spider-Man games, so that's fun.
Nice.
She'll be excited to hear that.
Yeah, and there's an Easter egg in there about two people we were just talking about earlier.
Really? Now we have to
one of them's funnier than the other. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. You have to. That's how you figure it out. That was a fun session in the recording booth. I'll tell you that. It's been really already its way out there because of the way that the internet works now. But yeah, I got to bring them in for a session, the two of them together, and just improvise around, and it was very exciting. Just a very small side story thing, but if you just stand there and listen to them for extended period of time, you get a real close up. It's pretty awesome.
I might not sleep tonight. I might have to go do that.
It's very early in the game, so that will not be hard.
Very cool. I think I don't know if you've seen Con Man, Chris, but I think there's a episode where they're doing voice recordings for video games, and it's hilarious. I forget which season that's in, though.
And there's also some good mocap stuff in there.
Yes, Alan wearing the suit with the ping pong balls on it and stuff.
Yeah.
Right. It's on my list now. The new season of Resident Alien is out, so I think I'm going to be going on an Alan binge soon.
Yeah,
and I think Con Man will make a perfect companion piece to that, because I've always meant to watch it. I just, it's just been, I should watch that, and then life happens.
I will say it was written in a different time. I will say that I don't know that it ages in a. If I had it all to do over again, I might write it slightly differently. But
listen, Josh, I have your contact info now. I'll just let you know.
Oh, great! I appreciate that. Let's not share that contact info with anybody else, though.
It'll be between you and me.
Right. It's on Blu-ray and Prime. It's definitely worth the binge. So
cool. I'm looking forward to it.
And this script for Off the Cuff, your part was written for you, so you already had the part, right? So you didn't even.
I did. I did not have to audition for it. No, wow. I didn't have an audition for it, and on top of that, the director. It just so happens I had worked with when my boys were very first born. I was called off to do an episode of Kung Fu, also in the Garrowverse, which he was directing. I hadn't worked with Joe before, Joe Menendez, but he is incredible, and so apparently he told me that when he went in to meet with Alex, he said, who'd be great for this Josh character? And he was going to pit, and he was like, Josh Dean. And then Alex was like, yeah, that's who that is. That is that person. He was like, oh, okay, great. And so I don't know if that's apocryphal or not, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
It's really cool because this character of Josh that you play is an important character in the Ben and Hannah relationship, because it's been 9 years for Hannah, so she met your character, got married, had a kid, and all this stuff. So what's it like to be like a third wheel, even though you're the husband when you're that character in this episode?
It was really excellent. I previously had mostly played, I mostly play kind of comedic foils or, broader things. And this was such a straight character. It was really fun to get to just have a dramatic role to fill, like a functional dramatic role. It was clear, and we had a lot of jokes obviously on set about that very thing, about where they would be doing their scene and I would just wander in to be like, hey, what are you guys talking about? That kind of thing. But they it was really fun. I mean, it's I'm sure that everybody who's ever been on here has told you that it is a pretty incredible warm set, Ray and Caitlin set such a great precedent of it just being a positive, prepared, professional place that it was an easy dynamic to get into, and so they welcomed me in, and so it was a lot of fun to get to be a third wheel. Quite frankly, I like wrecking stuff up. That was great.
Now, I think it's funny your take on that, Albie, because when Josh came on screen for me, he was the grounding presence. I'll stop talking about you in the third person. Josh, when you came on the screen to me.
I actually prefer it. I only refer to myself in the third
person. But when you come on, I mean, we had basically a half an hour so far of like David, who is just like bonkers in this episode. He just never stops. And I mean, he does a great job with the character. And then all of a sudden, we're in Hannah's environment, we don't even know it's hers yet, but you just serve as this grounding presence. And it's almost like the first real conversation that Ben is able to have in the entire episode is when you're patching him up.
Right.
So I felt like all of a sudden you come in and the episode feels a little bit more grounded, a little bit more focused.
Yeah, and that's interesting.
It's funny to me, based on your background, that they wrote this character for you.
Well, I think maybe initially some of the intention was because, I mean, David Rogers, who plays my brother in this, he is very funny. He is an incredibly funny guy, and I think maybe initially there was intended to be a lot more of this kind of bickering, back and forth, arguing, and they wanted us to be able to improvise and riff back and forth, because obviously Ray's an incredible improviser too and very funny, and so I think that they were kind of good. Maybe that might have been in part of the initial planning, I don't know that to be true necessarily. Alex didn't indicate that to me, but it just seemed like that, because I felt the same way. I was like, oh, this is a little bit different for me. I have played some of these kinds of roles, but it's not my stock and trade. And I think as it went on, it became more necessary to do, as you say, to have somebody that makes the stakes higher for Hannah. I spoke to Martin Garrow, the showrunner, and he had said, one part of casting me came down to wanting to make somebody who was the most likable person be in between them, so that Ben didn't feel like he could just, I wasn't the bad guy. They wanted it to be a little bit messier and a little more complicated. And so I think that's part of it too, is I generally play more, goofily charming people. And so I think that they wanted to bring someone who didn't just seem like a jerk in, and they could rely on me. At least I think they could rely on me for that.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, because I feel like that's been a strength of this second season so far. Just a perfect example of that is Peter's character. And Caitlin and Peter together on screen are together because Tom isn't a jerk. And like in a lot of other shows, I think that they would posit it so that she's with somebody, but he's not as good as Ben. So it's easy to hate him, and you just set up like this straw man.
Right.
And I feel like they avoided it with Caitlin's character. Now they're avoiding it with Hannah's character.
Yeah.
By putting, you're so lovable right in the middle.
Yeah. Well, thank you so very much. And we've only known each other for a short time. Yes. I think that's just, I mentioned Alex Berger. I think that they've got such a great team of writers on, because it is so much more, it's not just the leap of the week, procedural kind of a thing. They're taking advantage of the fact that they have laid all this groundwork to give everything a lot more meaning, and I think that gives Ray more to play. It gives Caitlin more to play, and they're both able to do that too. They're also able to play a lot of levels at once. So you never feel like, oh boy, Hannah's this terrible person for instantly being like, yeah, get out of here, Josh. Hey, Ben, get over here. And Ben isn't this terrible person for being in love with Hannah, because Hannah's great too. It's like everybody everybody is multifaceted, and so I think that is a great strength of the show.
The writing and your casting for Josh was, I think, perfect in that, because you're an obvious obstacle between Ben and Hannah. But not once in the episode was I bumped by your character, or I didn't dislike your character at all. I was sympathetic, if anything.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. To feel sympathetic for as you say, for the third wheel. I mean, we've seen Hannah at this point. This is the fourth time that she's popped up. Is that right?
About 5, 4, 5.
Yeah, because there's Diner, the
Diner,
college,
Princeton,
and then Egypt,
and Egypt.
Right.
This is the fourth.
This is the fourth time.
Right. You're right.
Yeah.
Fourth.
So and so we know her, and so one would think, oh great, they're back together, and oh great, so the fact that they were able to, in their writing and in Joe's directing, and they were able to make it even me, what essentially the obstacle, not be this like just that guy, like you can't, they built it very nicely so that everybody had something to play, and everybody felt real, and well, maybe David didn't feel especially real, but also too real in some ways. I talked to him. I was like, do you play a lot of sleazebags? And he's like, no, I never really play. I mean, I play people who talk fast, but I've never been like a sleazebag. I'm like, you're good at this. That was alarm. And then I realized that my watch and wallet were missing. But yeah, he is. Everybody had. Everybody belongs there. It's not just for their own reason, not just to serve a different purpose, which is a very generous thing for the writers to do.
That's really cool. I mean, we're talking about how generous they are, but then we get that horrible twist at the end. Well, I'm thinking maybe there's potential to see you again.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you probably can't talk about that, even if it is a thing. But did that blindside you?
It sure did. I was like, oh, I might be like, it's a show that, famously you can't really get a lot of recurring roles on if you're not a part of the main cast. And somehow Eliza figured out a way just by being great, I guess. And so she got to be Hannah. And I thought, oh, am I going to get to hitch my wagon to this? And then at the end, just in a Ziggy update, just like, ooh, I got slain. But also, that is what I had anticipated when I found out I was going to get to do it. I was just thrilled to get to be a part of it. I've seen every episode of it. So I was excited to get to be on camera, with those characters. I was kind of bummed because I hadn't died yet by the time I got to the very end, and then I was like, oh shoot, I did die.
Well, it's time travel. Assuming Ben keeps leaping forward, he still has that 18 month window.
Yeah, he's got a window. Yeah, exactly. And so I was, and also it does make your job easier when you go on as a guest star. I learned doing this show, when you aren't also hoping to make a great impression on everybody, and you kind of feel like this pressure of like, gee, if I just do great enough, maybe they'll bring me back. And because I knew, well, I'm gonna die, so this isn't gonna be that's fine. So I could just be there and I found, just for my own personal experience, that it was just lovely to get to be, okay, I get to do the job, I get to be grateful for that, and I just get to enjoy being with these people and being there without feeling this pressure, I think, that I would have otherwise put myself under, to like really sink the hooks in.
It really makes sense, since you are attached to the Hannah character, that they would have somebody in that spot that they trust if they ever needed you again, because it is time travel.
Sure.
And things happen.
Yes, it is.
You never know, because they can just call you up.
Yep. Oh, my phone's ringing now. Whoa, you are powerful. Jeez.
And you know what? Because we know this is how it works in TV, especially in Quantum Leap, when you're your own descendant or ancestor, you look exactly the same, and that kid has to grow up. That kid has to grow up. So,
well, I mean, we don't know. There might be another Ziggy update on the next episode. No, that's a little dark. But yes, exactly. That is a fact. That's how it works. You look the same except for the different haircut.
That's pretty much. So
It's a paradox.
It'll be Josh Dean as his son.
I would watch it. He would be right now 64. The kid, I think.
Okay, so if you're right. So they'd have to just go back
a little bit,
20 years or so, or get a good makeup person, and that's fine.
20 years in the past. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, you can make that happen.
I wanted to ask a little bit more about the filming. There was a moment. I have some silly questions. I always have silly questions, like things I think of while I'm watching the episode. One thing stuck out that I laughed a lot at was the between your character and your brother's character, the like awkward handshake hug part. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if that was you, because in the Christmas Prince movie, there was also that part, like a similar part. So
that was not me. That was written in it. It is just such a funny idea when they finally get each other, and then just to show like, I mean, it's never going to be chocolate and peanut butter here, but it is, it is still, they're trying, and it was something we were both very excited to do, and we though it never happened, I learned after that, like right after the shot, that Alex and Joe were like, okay, Alex, you go tell Josh to go in for the hug, and I'll go and tell David to go in for the handshake, like to give us different, like so that we would both really commit to going wrong.
That's perfect. I
love it. But we figured it out. We kind of did it naturally, so they didn't ever have to run in and tell and give us that. But yeah, no, that was in the script. I think it was just like awkward hug. Maybe it was awkward hug handshake kind of a thing. So it was pretty clear what we ought to do. We just got to work on it a little bit.
What was my other question? When have you seen the finished episode?
I have.
Okay. When Ben and Hannah are talking on the porch, and you hear your character and your brother's character, was that filmed like from earlier in that shot, or was that ADR? Because it just, the sound mix was perfect on that.
So that's very interesting. You should say that. So that good ear. That part of it was a pre-lap of what we shot inside at the dinner table, the argument about being a marksman, which is such a funny line. But then they did have us in ADR do a couple of improvised things, not together, separately. I think David had come in and he fired a few like one-line things, and then I did a few kind of responses. But that's Kevin Zimmerman and the team in the ADR side of things, and the sound mixers and everything. They're really incredible. And so yeah, that's all them just being really great at their job.
What was the feeling like on the set? Because the chemistry between all the actors was like perfect casting, and it was just like it just felt like you were all having a good time, even when you weren't like necessarily supposed to be having a good time.
We 100% were. We were it was, we had so much fun and laughed a lot, and I mean, even Connor, who played my son, even he was very like outgoing, and even just because we shot it way out in the country, outside of town, almost to, I don't know, like almost to Oxnard or something, which means nothing, I'm sure, to those of you who do not live in the greater California area. But it was a really long way away, and when you're out on location like that, the base camp is all set up someplace totally different, and everyone gets into vans when after you're in your hair and your makeup and your wardrobe, and you all ride together to the set, and so just even on those rides, we would all be chatting, and Connor would be giving us questions about who could win, a zombie or a tiger, and like we're just getting into like really existential stuff. But everybody in the car, Ray would be the first person to be like, yeah, but it just depends, because he'd really get into the nitty gritty of it, and then you realize like, oh, if he's willing to play, then I think we can all, it's just going to be a fun time. And it really was. I've been so impressed with him from the very beginning of the show, because it's not an easy, it's just not an easy balance to hit, of being able to do like the very heartfelt, stuff like end of episode stuff, to be playing all the serious drama, to be playing action, and to be playing comedy, and all the time, and feel them all be connected in the same person. And he's just really great. And getting to see him on set, because I didn't get to spend very much time with Caitlin, just the way that they shoot it. We only, I think, had half a day on set together. You know, I just, that's why I'm speaking more on about him. But he's so focused. He's able to just goof around. He knows every single person, and every he's friends with everybody, and he's in a non-cloying way. He's just like, it was just really lovely to be on a set like that, because they aren't all like that. And especially not when you're halfway through season 2, and so things are different than when it's your first big lead network thing, that maybe that could be just some excitement, but you realize you really get to know who the people are by later on down the line, when it becomes more of a grind and it becomes more of a routine. And he was still just always the most prepared and such a positive person, and so he set it up to be a very fun, playful place, and that I think makes everybody work better.
Were the interiors on the stage, or was that part of the location?
Part of the location. Yeah, I think that it is this farmhouse that is essentially just used for set purposes, but it is like a working. I don't know if there was running water like inside of the house. Honestly, I didn't try. But yeah,
that'd be embarrassing.
But it is like you can it is workable inside and out. So yeah,
it just had that feel of not being on the stage. So I had to ask that. So how many days were you on the shoot?
I was only on the shoot for 3 days. And also some photo shoot on different days, wardrobe on different day, but 3 days of actual principal being on set and shooting.
What's that like going in with? I'm assuming you and Eliza did that photography together on that day.
Yes, we did. Yeah, that was the first time that we met. And she's just so easy to talk to and funny, and so we had a great time, just like, hello, I'm your husband. Why, hello, I'm your wife. And then you just have a good, and then you're like, wow, we both look, I mean, it's the 70s, so no one's looking at their absolute best. She pulls it off a lot better than I do. I'm not gonna lie. That goatee, it's not the most flattering thing I've ever had, but yeah, it was really fun, and we in fact have kept in touch. And she also has a young son, and so we actually are planning a play date shortly.
Wow,
that's cool.
Yeah, how nice.
Yeah, and you got the twins. So, is that why you wrote twins into the movie, or was that one of those mandates?
It is. It actually, no. It was. That is what's crazy is when we were on the of Christmas with the Prince 3. We were on the call with the production company when they were giving us the rundown, and this would be the twist, is that it's twins. At that, we actually had to. We received results of our test that were saying, like, almost at the exact same time, and it seems based on these levels that you might have twins. I was like, wow, okay. It was very strange timing. Yeah.
Wow. Wait,
how old are they?
2 1/4.
Wow. So have you slept yet?
I know I intend to do that later. I understand in 16, 17 years I might get a shot at a nap. Yeah, that the first, I wouldn't wish the first 6 months on anybody. But it's pretty great now, just because they run around and they're funny and cute and talk and stuff. Every morning it's just like, what new software update have you downloaded? Like, what are we talking here? What do we got? Oh, you can do that with your thumb now? That was not something you could do yesterday. Interesting. It shouldn't go there, but cool that you can do it.
It's the best. Every week there's something new. It's great.
How old is Serenity?
Serenity is 11. She was born in 2012.
Oh, wow. That's got to be so awesome though, because that is good. Like, I can show you all my movies that I love, and like you might be interested in them, and like that's pretty rad. That's pretty rad.
Yeah, she's at that stage where she wants to watch everything with me, so we're going through all the '80s movies and all the cool sci-fi shows and stuff like that.
Essential. It's an essential. My kids are just lucky that I'm super into Bluey. Always have been, always will be. John Hughes' best work.
You get into those Disney Junior shows, and you're doing the Mickey Mouse hot dog dance and all that stuff. It's a good life.
Yeah, it's I shudder to think, but I also look greatly forward to it.
Going back to Josh, the character in the Quantum Leap episode, did you have any thoughts about your character that maybe weren't in the script but helped you, like a backstory you made up for him?
No. No, I did not. That's maybe bad acting, but I think because I come from an improv base, I feel like I am very instinctual. I didn't have formal training. I kind of learned how to do everything I do in front of a crowd, and so I really, I think I almost don't trust too much preparation, because that can paint you into some corners on set when you get there and nobody else has thought that about you. You just kind of thought that might be something about your character. And so, not that I don't think that there's value in it, but it's just, wasn't part of my process with this character. Also, because I was like, it's pretty clear what my purpose is there. And I am familiar with the show, so I could kind of backfill some thoughts just because I'm familiar with the Hannah character,
So have you watched Quantum Leap?
I murdered 6 people, but that's besides. That's
as long as you don't get caught.
That won't come out. They're buried in the farm somewhere.
It was in the 70s.
Pretty
it was
big
a
piece of
different
property,
time.
right? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. It was, everything's different back then.
It was a different time. Okay. What in the scene where Hannah's handing Ben his jacket, and you're staying back on the porch?
Yeah.
What was Josh thinking, and what were you thinking during those same time?
It's so hard to know where Josh ends and Josh begins. Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely, every time that she would run up to me, I would always say, like, why were you talking to him for so long? Just as to see what her reaction would be as we walked in. Boy, you talked to that stranger for a long time. But Josh, the character, I think just trusts Hannah implicitly because she has been nothing but this forthcoming as far as I knew, not having been a party to her Cairo times. But so I don't think the character was suspicious. I think he just thought, like, oh, she's concerned about everybody. She just is somebody who takes an interest in people. But I think as far as Josh the actor, I was thinking it's really, really cold, and I hope I don't trip going up the stairs. And then when I got to the part where I was just to stand still, I felt relief. And then I thought, what's a 70s way a guy would stand?
And it turned out it wasn't all that different, right?
It wasn't all that different, but a little different. A little more crotch forward than people stand now.
That was just the cut of the slacks.
It was, yes, yeah.
When I go back and watch it, that's what I'll be thinking about. I'm sure.
I wouldn't pause anywhere in that area.
Now we know from talking to writers, producers, and editors that a lot of these shows come in maybe 10 minutes long, 15 minutes long. Since you've seen the final cut, which is unusual for us when interviewing people that have actually seen the final cut besides us and other media, is there anything that that was shot or scripted that didn't make it into the final cut, as long as it doesn't contain spoilers?
I would say nothing that of any of the things that I was involved in, no, other than like just cutting a line here or there for time. for the most part, I don't think that there was anything substantive that was removed. I'm trying to remember, because it was probably 3-4 weeks ago that I saw it. So, and I haven't slept, as you know. But
it's true.
Yeah, I really don't think that there was at this point in the cycle. I can't imagine that they are coming in that long. Things get down to a real, it becomes a real well-oiled machine, and so I in the room as well, and so I can't imagine that there's like, wow, we gotta cut this whole side thing with the dog.
It was all those other errant lines from A Christmas Story. They just we had to get rid of those.
Snuck in. Yeah, why does he keep talking about Christmas and twins? It doesn't make sense. So I don't think so. I wish that there had been more time for me and David to riff, and for me and Ray to riff, but on camera. But we did enough riffing in the barn where they had set up craft services, so we got our job done.
The turnaround for these final 5 episodes is crazy because of the strikes, and coming back, and then I think they're finishing up the last episode 13 right now, if they haven't already, just recently. But what did you? Yeah. Was there like a sense of like urgency, or had to get it done quicker than normal because of the long break and coming back? Did you notice anything like that, or was it?
No, not particularly. In fact, because it was the first one back, it was fun because people were a little bit like, it felt like when in Jurassic Park, when everything still has like the packing peanuts in it, like there's like everybody was just like, right, okay, yeah, right, this is how we do this, and so it didn't have that sense of. I think that it's really been more in post that will have been the bigger squeeze, because they're having to cut things and. Cut the episodes together and get the scoring and all the ADR and everything together, and visual effects and stuff, and I think that's where the real crunch is probably being felt, especially for the first 3, since I don't know. I mean, we finished shooting mid-December, I guess, and it's airing in less than a month, and that's pretty tight for that sort of thing.
Yeah,
it's going to be even tighter for the next couple. So so yeah, I think it's more, a lot of that heavy lifting is being done probably in the writer's room at the start when the strike ended, and everyone got back together and was like, okay, well, we have to shoot next week, so let's get an episode out there, and then in post, this is a real behind the scenes, a peek behind the scenes. But I know all about that post stuff because I am the loop group coordinator on the show. And so are you familiar? I presume you're familiar with the concept of a loop group, are you?
Yeah.
Yes. We have a lot of listeners that maybe aren't. So would you mind giving us a brief description?
So on in the background of anytime there's a crowd scene, or the police station or anything, or if there's anybody moving in the background, they can't actually make any noise or actually clap their hands, or they all move their mouths, but it's all pretend because they can't, or it would interfere with the audio of the written lines. And so they forever there is a job called a looper, who comes in in a session after the episode has been essentially cut together, and this group of union actors will improvise what is going on in the background, as well as providing things like the news report that comes on when they turn on the radio, or the play-by-play announcer that you hear at the bar, or the train announcement, or the clapping or the laughing, or any of the effort, any chase and fight scenes, things that sometimes as simple as like an exhale or a sip of water. These are all provided after the fact. And so that is what we do. So I actually am Ray's double in the recording booth.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is for the entire series, not just this episode?
That's right. Yeah, for the entire series.
How do you get something like that? I know we've been talking for a while now, but there's so many layers. It's just so fascinating.
Yeah.
All the crap you do, man.
Well, you know, it comes from being a theater actor, and my wife also started in theater, and you have to be a jack of all trades in order to, you know, make all the ends meet. And so that's how, you know, we've always really expanded laterally as much as possible, so that if you know, if there isn't a lot of heat on one thing, you can always go to the back burner. And so, and then eventually, after you've been doing it for a long time, a lot of different things start kind of paying off at the same time. And that sort of feels like where we're at now, which is good timing when you have twins.
Yeah, I bet.
But yeah, so I've been looping since it all started, because it had been a minute since I'd had a job, and I was not going to get my union insurance. And Nathan Fillion said, "Oh, well, there's this job called looping, and you're an improviser, so you'd be good at that, and a voice actor. So that all seems like that'll make sense. I'll see if I can get you on Castle as one of the loopers." And so that's where I started way back when, and I've been doing it ever since, because again, it's a nice combination of skills I already had, and after you've been doing it a long time, and if you are lucky, you can sometimes have your own groups. And so yeah, we do a few shows. Yeah,
very cool.
So
I love
when you say loop group, so you have an ensemble that you direct for different things, or
not so much. It used to be that you'd have an ensemble, that you'd have like a cast of people that you always use. It's no longer the case, because it is a very it's a lucky job to get, to be able to loop. And so nowadays, most of the times the jobs go to people that like know someone in the cast. The way that I started, I think everybody kind of started that way, in the cast or in production. And so and also the groups are much smaller now than they used to be. So there just aren't, generally it's like the coordinator and one person that they bring in, and then more often than not, it's other people, you know, requested people to fill out the group, and who get good at it by, you know, just by practice.
Wow. Is that a work at home thing?
Sometimes, most of the time it's in studio, but during the pandemic it did shift to work at home. Yeah.
I had never heard of that before. Thank you for shining yet another light onto a corner of the industry that I had no idea existed.
Yeah, it's a fascinating job. That's a talk about, and also to be good at it, you do a lot of research. So you have to know how they use police codes if you're doing police radios in NYPD versus upstate New York versus, you know, you need to know ER, every real term and how to use all these terms if you want to be good at it, because you have to be able to answer to anything that somebody comes at you, and you know, or you know, how quantum computing works, for instance, and quantum physics, that comes up sometimes.
Maybe.
Is there something you did as part of the Loop group for Quantum Leap specifically, that if we go back and know it's you, we'll definitely hear that it's you, like an announcement or something? Or
that's yeah. I mean, that's a really good question. I think that I was NASA in the. I think I was the mission control in that. I believe.
Very cool.
I don't remember, because all the guys in the group did it, and so I think that I was the one chosen in the end. But it doesn't really. I don't really remember, because I see it before. I don't watch it when it airs most of the time, and so so yeah, which is fine, because I'm not a Nielsen family. Do those even still exist?
I was one for a short time, but I just watched Star Trek and Firefly, so they didn't follow up with it.
Your box was revoked. Amazing.
So, Josh, you're going to be forever number one in our Nielsen book. We still use books here on the podcast. We don't have fancy boxes. And I just want to thank you so much. We don't want to overstay our welcome. I just want to ask you, by way of wrapping up, do you have any messages for the leapers out there who are listening?
Bring them home.
well, then you've heard it. You've heard it here. Well, thank you, Josh Dean, so much for appearing with us on the Quantum Leap podcast.
Thanks for having me.